Hello, and welcome to our third video. Today we're going to be going over buildings and the cards and the information on them. We're also going to be covering the resources and unit recruitment and how that works in the game. And we're going to be going over the different types of buildings, resource buildings, defense buildings, and recruitment buildings. Things that we're not going to be going over today are going to be where those resources are recorded and where the units are recorded. That'll be saved for our economy video. Thank you. Okay, here we have our first building that we're going to be going over today. We're going to be going over the keep. And this is the tier 1 keep. And let's just start from the top and go to the bottom to explain where all the information is and what it means. Up here at the top, just like with our units, it's the cost of the building. And all of the symbols will be the same. And as you can see right here at the end is a new resource, stone. Buildings later on in the tiers require stone. So that'll be the one extra icon that the buildings have over the units. Now, right below that, just like the unit cards, we have the art. The art here was done by Jonathan Abbas. He's going to be doing all of our building art across the entire game. And it was a really good experience working with him. He had some really clever ideas on how to make the buildings look like they're progressing from one type of building to another through the tiers, to allow the players to really feel like their lands are increasing in strength and power. The next line down is just the name and tier of the building. So it's tier 1, and then it's the keep. And this will be the same for all buildings, and it's very similar to the unit cards. And again, just like the unit cards, right in this area, it'll be the information special to the building itself. So in this case, starter building is the special sort of feature for this building. And what that means is that there's a select number of buildings that you start with. And down here at the bottom, this is considered an income building, but it also sets other bit of information that we'll cover here in a moment. But right here it shows what the income is, and you get that during the draw phase, which we'll go over here shortly. The next thing that we're going to be covering is the progression of the game and show some of the buildings as they progress through, particularly with the keep. Now, you see the information presented here on the tier 1 keep. Whenever you have the amount of resources that you need to progress to tier 2, which is presented at the top of the tier 2 keep card, this is the amount of resources that you have to have on your resource pad and you have to spend to start construction of this building. As you can see here, the building has actually progressed in its visuals. There's a little bit more stone, the building is a little bit bigger, there's some additions, and that's just one thing that you're going to see with a lot of Jonathan's art. You're going to see this constant progression of the building becoming more and more substantial and just showcasing how you are progressing through the game. Next is the tier 2 building keep. And then right here, you see the information has changed. Now, how you progress through the building of the game, through that part of the game, is through your keep. Your keep gates your buildings and battles, which we'll cover here in a future video. But as it says right here, you have to build your tier 2 keep first before you can start construction on your other tier 2 buildings. It is sort of the gatekeeper. Also here, it says how many turns it takes to build. Now that is the number of ticks this card has to rotate before it comes online. Now when this rotates is during the build phase. That's whenever you are constructing buildings, retraining troops, training new troops, and also progressing construction that is already underway. Down here at the bottom is the income. And as you can see, the income is actually increased from tier 1 to tier 2. Now, ticking is our way of just rotating the card to visually show you and to the other players how far along this building is. So in this case, it is 2 ticks from the up position. So during your first build phase that you have this under construction, the keep is upside down, and then on the following build phase, it ticks like this, and then on the next build phase, it ticks like this, and then it is considered online and you can start building those tier 2 buildings. Here also we have the tier 3 building of the keep as well. And as you can see, the building has become far more substantial. There's a lot more stone added in, and it's just really cool looking. And the cost of the building has gone up to go from tier 2 to tier 3. The information here is pretty much the same, tier 3 keep. And right here, it again shows the same information, the number of turns that it requires to make, and then what tier of building is unlocked. And also, the coin income goes up again. Here we have the tier 1 barracks. Now, as you see, the information is very similar to all the other buildings and all of other unit cards. The cost is up at the top, and then it's the art. And again, pay attention to the art. It will be progressing, and the barracks from what it is now and what it is at tier 3 is pretty sweet. And then the information of tier 1 barracks. And here you can see again that this is a starter building. So this will be another building that you start the game with during the setup phase. And then, as you can see here, the barracks unlocks tier 1 infantry and cavalry units. This will allow you during the build phase, as long as you have the resources to train tier 1 infantry and cavalry and add them to your army sheet. The army sheet will be going over here shortly in a future video. We'll be moving on to the tier 2 barracks. As you can see here, it's got the cost up at the top, and then the barracks has progressed. It's got a wall around it now. There's more troops inside. The building has overall been increased and expanded, so that's really cool. And then, just like the keep before, it has the turns that it requires to come online, and then what tier of infantry and cavalry units that it can recruit. Now, one special note I would like to say here is this building does replace your tier 1 barracks. However, if something catastrophic happens in your campaign and you're low on resources, you can still train all the tier 1 infantry and cavalry units. That is still capable of this building. This just unlocks the addition of tier 2 of infantry and cavalry units. And finally, we have the tier 3 barracks. As you can see, more resources, more turns, and higher quality troops. And the building itself, now it's got a far more substantial wall, it's got a tower in the corner, a much more secure area to barracks troops, and far more troops present on the grounds. Again, Jonathan has done an amazing job to really showcase the progression from one tier to another, so players feel that the resources that they're spending are getting them something. Here we have our first resource building. Now, we've already gone over the building that sort of gates your progression through the game, and we've gone through the recruitment building. Here we have our first dedicated resource building. Now, some of the information is slightly different on this card, so I'll just go over it from the top to the bottom again. Up at the top is the cost of this building. This is a tier 1 mine, so it's going to cost you 5 coins to build. And here's the art. As I said before, pay attention to the art and as it progresses, because this is another one that changes drastically from what it is now and what it is in tier 3. It has the information, tier 1 mine, and the new bit of information on this card is instant. That means the moment you have the resources to pay for the building, during the build phase, the building comes on. So then during the next draw phase, when you're bringing in this income, this building is already online, ready to bring you in the income. Now, talking about the income, you see here that it brings in 3 metal. Now again, with this being instant, during the build phase, you build it, it immediately comes on, and then during the next draw phase, you can gather the resources and add it to your resource sheet. Alright, and here we have the Tier 2 mine. As you can see, just like in the other buildings, there's just slight information changes, but everything is still in the same space. You have the cost of the building to build it, and how many turns it takes for it to come online, and then its resources. Now, I would like to state again that you cannot build this building until you have completed your Tier 2 keep. The Tier 2 keep has to be completely online before you can start building this structure. And lastly, we have the Tier 3 mine, where it's really online. It's got a village in the background to process all the resources, and multiple entrances and exits into the side of the mountain here. How many turns it requires to build, the resources it requires to bring online, and again, the income of 7 metal, which is actually quite good. And this will be your only income for metal. There's no other buildings that bring in additional metal. Here we have our first defensive building, and as you can see, the information is all the same like all the rest of the buildings and the unit cards. The cost of the building up at the top, and then the art, that again pay attention to as it progresses, and then it's a Tier 1 outpost. It has the special attribute of instant, so whenever you have the resources to build the building, it comes on immediately. The one thing that is special about this defensive building is that it protects some of your resources from negative events. So the outpost particularly protects the lumberyard, the mine, and the quarry from one negative event. There's also walls that will protect your barracks, range, keep, and village from other negative events targeting them specifically. Now we have some examples of negative and positive internal and external events. Now details of how these events work and how varied they are we'll go over in detail in a video just about them. But here you can see we have a negative event that is an internal event, which these are from your internal deck that will affect your lands. This one is the negative metal, so it would be affecting your mine. Now how you defend yourself with your outpost from these internal events that are drawn during the draw phase is you tick the defensive building to indicate that you're using its effect to block this card and discard it immediately. Here we have a positive internal event, and these can be used after the fact of a negative event that may have landed on your mine. This can be used to remove it during the conflict phase. The other thing that you can do with this card is if you're pinched for resources, you can spend it to give yourself an additional metal to maybe help you in the next build phase. There's also external event cards that you can play on other players during the conflict phase that will target certain buildings. And there are positive external events that allow you to help out other players that may be behind in either resources or have been suffering from an event that they haven't been able to get rid of as of yet. Alright, and here we have the Tier 2 outpost. It has the resources that it requires on top. The building has expanded greatly. There are some temporary barracks for the troops that oversee this outpost and a nice wall protecting them. This one does require a number of turns, just one turn to come on, and it protects the same buildings, but it can be used more than once. So, just like in the reverse of the turns to build, you tick it to indicate the number of times. And with this Tier 2 building, you can tick it twice to potentially block 2 incoming negative events. And lastly, we have the Tier 3 outpost. It has the number of turns, and it continues to increase the number of negative events that it can protect against. As you can see, it's a far more substantial defensive building, and the cost has gone up. The last thing that I wanted to cover in the video today was faction buildings. There are some factions that have special buildings that are unique to them, and I want to show you one of the ones that we have completed. House Kell has the Kell Academy. Now, some of you might have read up on this building a little bit, as it was mentioned in the reveal for this particular faction, and here you get to see the art, what the building does, and how much it costs. This building comes on instantaneously whenever you have the resources to spend on it. Here's the art showing off the low-level academy. This is sort of representative of you building a new branch of the academy. And then down here in the attribute section, it shows what the building does. So for Tier 1 specifically, infantry, range, or cavalry units, they can either gain parry or troop strength +1. Now, the units that you send to the academy can only go there once. There's a maximum of 5 that can be there at any given time. And if you have any other questions about the faction, either ask it in Discord, in the video, or on Facebook, or just check out the faction reveal, because that has a lot of information about this particular faction. Just like all the rest of the buildings, there are 3 tiers to it. Here's Tier 2. And it actually changes a little bit once it gets to Tier 2. All the other progression is the same, but here it actually specifies that it's only Tier 2 infantry that benefit from the Tier 2 keep. So you can't send the Tier 1 infantry to a Tier 2 building and get additional benefits. However, the Tier 1 effects are still there, just like all other buildings. Here you see that the Tier 2 infantry can get either parry or troop strength, TS +2, and the ranged units can increase their defense or their troop strength, and then cavalry, much like infantry, can increase parry or give themselves parry depending on the unit itself, or increase their troop strength. Alright, and here we have our Tier 3 building for the Kell Academy. It does all the same things that the Tier 1 and Tier 2 do, but they affect Tier 3 units. Now here we actually have it saying Tier 2. It's actually Tier 3. That was just a mistake on my part when writing these out. Here it does Tier 3 infantry. The defense is increased by 1, or the troop strength is increased by 3. Tier 2 ranged has the defense increased by 2, or the troop strength by 3. And Tier 3 cavalry get parry +1. So if the unit already has parry, that makes it parry +2, and troop strength or troop strength +3. The troop strength can never exceed 30. At Tier 3, the infantry units that already have 30 troop strength, they cannot benefit from this additional troop strength, and they cannot go over that hard maximum. It's been a lot of fun going over the buildings today with you guys, and I hope to hear some questions and some feedback from you on this information. And that was our video on buildings. We're really excited to hear from you guys and answer some of those questions. So like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe and like us here on YouTube, and get onto Discord so you can have conversations with us. We're on Discord and Facebook every single day and are really looking forward to answering these questions. And we're also looking forward to getting more of the mechanics out to you guys so you have a better understanding of what sort of game that you'll be backing here in the future. Hopefully we'll hear from you all soon, and we'll be probably doing our next video on the economy, and that'll be going over a lot of information, so we're really excited to get that out to you. So thank you very much for joining us today.